Of my experience, some of y'all know that I went to Illinois up to visit 3ABN, and a little bit of that experience I'm going to share. I know before I got there, I was driving, and it was probably a few days before I was supposed to leave, and I was planning on driving. It was about 9.5 hours from Baton Rouge, where I live, to get up to Thompsonville, Illinois. If anybody knows where that is, good luck. It's in the southern part of Illinois, about 5 hours away from Chicago. I learned that. And so I got in my car, and it was a few days before I was driving in Baton Rouge. And those of you who know Baton Rouge traffic, it is terrible. People don't know how to drive, and people love to almost hit you. And it's like a daily battle every time I go to my house to work and back home. And so as I'm driving, you of course come to gridlock traffic, which is always in Baton Rouge. And you know it's that 5:30 time, and there's cars stopped. They're all stopped because there's a red light, and you have a far right lane that keeps going because they're turning right on the light, and I'm always getting in that lane. As I'm driving down, would you know it, there's a break, and a car comes out of nowhere, and I see it in my rear view coming right at me. That's it. It just hit me. Beyond anything I can imagine, because I've been in wrecks like this, I'm waiting for the impact, and it never came. I went, whoa. I don't know how that's possible, how they had time to stop. They were coming right at me. And I mean, it probably stopped that short. So I said, okay, God. That definitely calmed me down a little bit. What is it that the devil doesn't want me to go? So I get in my car to drive up that morning. I wake up about 4 a.m. to get in the car to go there, to get there in time. And I'm getting lonely, and I'm missing my wife already, because normally I take these long trips with her, and I'm just feeling, man, I just kind of feel depressed. I don't know what it is. So as I'm going up there, again, I'm sitting there saying, what's going on with me? I don't feel this kind of anxiety, depression. Again, it's the enemy trying to say, I don't want you to be there. By the time we got there, I'll just share the life-changing stuff that I had a little bit in here, some of the lessons we learned. But I had 2 roommates. We stayed in a house like this, kind of like just an open area, but it was a little smaller. And we just had beds in there. And, you know, one guy came in, and me and him were just, man, Bible, 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 Bible. And the other guy came in. He wasn't too sure why he was there. And he's talking to us, and he can see the enthusiasm. So then he starts, okay, at first he's kind of off on the side on his phone, and he's kind of doing his thing. And we're just sitting at the table going Bible verses back and forth. We're looking over stuff. And I can tell y'all, a few days into this, before we knew it, our other roommate's standing in front of us, leading us out in prayer and doing all these things. And he's just into it. He's got the enthusiasm. And even since that time, that was about 6 weeks ago, he still calls us, texts us. He's still very enthusiastic. So sometimes, y'all, your enthusiasm can go off on others. You never know. You know how you are when you are for Christ. You never know how that enthusiasm will wear off on others. So before we get into this, let's have a word of prayer. Heavenly Father, I want to thank you for this time we have together. May you just allow your Spirit to come down, and may it be your words. As we talk about these things, I just want you to understand that these are your words, Lord. These are not my words. These are to make me decrease so you may increase, to share these things. And we thank you for this time we do have together and this Sabbath. All this in Jesus' name, amen. So we have kind of this idea of love. We have human love, and then there's God's love. It's 2 different types of love. See, we think in our terms as human, but God has a whole different idea of what love really is. It's hard for us to know. See, my experience with love with God is what changed my life. When I was the drunk and I couldn't do anything about it, God decided, I'm going to take this moment right now to help you. I never repented. I never said I forsake my sins. I never did anything. But he loved me so much in the moment, he took it away from me without me repenting. That's a loving God. He didn't have to do that. I never got down and said, oh, God, I want to change my life. I want to do all. No. I just said I want to be sober. And he says, I got you. And he came down, and that's the love that God has, is even while we do our sins, he still loves us and wants us to be free of it. So we got to work for it a little bit, but he wants us to be free. So I'm going to show a video, and this is just kind of speaking to how God communicates with us. If you imagine it's every day, all around us. It's just a little short video to give you kind of an idea. There's no volume, don't worry about that. Can y'all see it, or is it like kind of dark? Yeah. I'll explain it when we finish. So you'll see in this video there's going to be little stickies, and they're saying things. You're great. And he's just going about his life. As we tend to do, just go about our life. It says, I'm proud of you. And he doesn't even notice. So that's the key. It's just showing you that God's speaking to you throughout your life, throughout your day, all day, every day, and we tend to not notice it. And we say, oh man, God's not in my life. God hadn't spoke to me in forever. He's not doing anything for me. But what we seem to miss is he's been there the whole time throughout our lives with little things. I love you, I'm here. We just tend to miss them. We tend to not see it. And so we go to the Bible, and Jesus is trying to get people to follow him. And what we're going to see is them saying, I'll follow you, but what ends up happening? Life gets in the way, excuses. So we'll go to Matthew 8:19 and 20, and it reads, verse 19 says, Then a certain scribe came and said to him, Teacher, I will follow you wherever you go. So he's willing, he's saying, I will follow you. And then verse 20, And Jesus said to him, Foxes have holes, and birds of the air have nests, but the Son of Man has nowhere to lay his head. Ooh. Let's keep reading, verses 21 and 22. Verse 21, Then another of his disciples said to him, Lord, let me first go and bury my father. Verse 22, But Jesus said to him, Follow me, and let the dead bury their own dead. We look at this and we tend to say, man, Jesus was being kind of harsh. No. What's happening here in the culture is that actually you saw in the beginning where he said, I'll follow you. And he said, I don't have anywhere to lay my head. I don't have anywhere to go. I'm poor. And now all of a sudden somebody else says, well, I don't know about this. Man, I got my father over here who I need to take care of. And you got to think about in their culture too, their father that he needs to take care of, He could pass away in a month. He could pass away in a year. He could pass away in 10 years. But realistically, he's holding on to something. And you can look at it as he's holding on to, what's he looking forward to? That inheritance, maybe. The inheritance from the Father he's going to get. He can't let it go. And so he's just thinking about these excuses. Well, I don't want to go just lay my head anywhere. So once Jesus said, look, you're following me, it's going to be difficult, you see how the people walk away and come with excuses. And that's what Jesus is pointing out. But we have another example of whenever he goes to other people, and it's a different reaction. In Matthew 4:18, and Jesus, walking by the Sea of Galilee, saw two brethren, Simon called Peter, and Andrew his brother, casting a net into the sea, for they were fishers. Jesus walked up to them. Imagine, he's walking up to you while you're at your job. This is their job. This is what they're doing. He walks up to them. They're in the middle of their job. And then what does he say? What does he say? Verses 19 and 20. 19, and he saith unto them, follow me, and I will make you fishers of men. Verse 20, and they straightway left their nets and followed him. I want to point out, you notice that it says first, follow me. That means there's something we have to do. You have to put down the net. You have to put down the work, and you have to follow Jesus. Once you do that, look at the second part. Jesus says, I, Jesus, will make you fishers of men. So the first thing is we do, and then Jesus comes and says, I will make you fishers of men. So you see how that works. Now Peter, he denied Jesus. We know the story of how he denied Jesus 3 times. He was heartbroken after this. We know that the difference between him and Judas was more of the consequences of the sin versus Peter was really sincerely sorry for his sin of denying. And he got to the point to where he would do anything. So there's going to be a conversation I'm going to break down that he has after Jesus was resurrected, and he's speaking to Peter. And you got to understand Peter's mindset. He's so sorrowful. He can't believe he did what he said he would never do because his faith wasn't quite there yet. But now he's like, man, he's just so upset. But then he has this conversation right here with Jesus. And this is in John 21, verse 15. So when they had dined, Jesus said to Simon Peter, Simon, son of Jonas, lovest thou me more than these? He saith unto him, Yes, Lord, thou knowest that I love thee. He saith unto him, Feed my lambs. I'm going to point out, in the English language, the word love is just love. But in the Greek language, what I'm doing is I'm going to highlight it so you can see there's a difference. That red lovest, actually in the Greek, means agapeo, which we get from the word agape love, which we know as like a moral love. It's a little bit stronger. That yellow love in the Greek is actually the word phileo. And we get that word from, have y'all ever heard of the city called Philadelphia? What do they call it? The city of brotherly love. So phileo is actually more of a friend, a love, a brotherly love. And so what's happening in this exchange is Jesus is saying, you don't love me agape. You don't love me like this. And Peter's like, come on, man. I love you like a brother. You're my brother. I love you. And then they keep on in their conversation. Verse 16. He said to him again, the second time, Simon, son of Jonas, lovest thou me? He said unto him, Yeah, Lord, thou knowest that I love thee. He said unto him, Feed my sheep. Again, we're going to see the same exchange. You see, he used agape love. Jesus is speaking, saying, do you love me like in a moral sense? And then Peter's saying, no, I love you like a brother, man. You're my brother. I love you. But let's see what changes. In verse 17, Now, Jesus again is speaking. He said to him again the third time, Simon, son of Jonas, lovest thou me? Peter was grieved because he said unto him a third time, lovest thou me? And he said unto him, Lord, thou knowest all things. Thou knowest that I love thee. Jesus saith unto him, feed my sheep. So what happened here? Jesus repeated back, you don't even love me like a brother. So now we see Peter getting upset because Jesus is repeating back the same words that Peter's been saying to him. But I do love you like a brother. He says, you don't even love me like that. And Peter gets upset. We just have this idea of love is so different in our minds. But God's love is different. 1 John 4:16. And we have known and believed the love that God has for us. God is love. And he who abides in love abides in God, and God in him. God is love. When I first came to the realization that God is love, I didn't understand it. And I got to have time with like-minded people for a week, and we really got down into what is this God is love, and we got to try to understand it. You know, this whole mess of a world we're in, think of this. God could have said, you know what? Satan went down there, he tricked them all, let me wipe them all out. Why not? It's just a little bit. Let me just wipe them out and I can clear every angel's mind. And he has the power to do this. But he didn't. He let it play out. Why? Because God is love. God could have done this, but God would have known he did it. Nobody else would have, but God's love. And it's not who his character is. So he didn't do it. He didn't just race and stop and start over. But love requires freedom. To have a true love, you have to have freedoms. Look, I couldn't go to my wife and say, you're going to marry me, pull out a gun and say, guess what, you're going to marry me. I don't think that'd be a good way to start. I don't think that'd be true love. I mean, realistically, we laugh, but it's serious. Like, if it's a forced love and it's not a freedom to love, it's not real love. It's not. But with love, he gives the freedom, and then with freedom comes risk. So if he's going to give us the freedom so that we can love, there's going to be risk involved. And now we get into where it gets kind of murky. You know, your spouse, if you truly love them, you give them the freedom so they can love and you can love back. But what's the risk? They can cheat on you. They can hurt you. They can leave you. That's the risk. But true love breeds out that risk. And that's where we are. So what's the opposite of love? Now, most of the time you hear hatred, but really what we're going to see is self. When you're selfish, you hate all things that aren't of you. You hate things that don't benefit you. And I had a lot of that in my heart in my past. And I had a lot of experience with this self and how this all worked. I want y'all now to focus. Imagine, I know y'all have had jobs where, let's say you've been working there for a long time. And there's somebody left the company, and you're coming up for a promotion. You think you're coming up for a promotion. Everybody's telling you you're perfect for the job. You're looking at this, man, I can make this much more money. Man, you know what? I can be there, and they're going to bump me up to this. I can be the manager. And everybody around you is telling you, you're it. There's nobody else more qualified. It's you. You're the person. You're the most logical. You've been here the longest. You know the most stuff. And you're walking around, and now you're starting to think, yeah, that's me. I'm getting that promotion. Hadn't happened yet, but I know it's coming to me. And then you start thinking, man, I can go buy a bigger house. I can go buy a boat. Oh, I can go get these things. Me and my kids, my spouse, we got these vacations we can go on. Your mind starts going crazy with it. You've already promoted yourself in your heart. And then the day comes and they hire somebody outside the company. What happens? It's toxic. You're angry. Now you're going to run around and probably stir up problems. You're going to be upset. So imagine what's happening in your heart. You thought you had this because everybody's lifting you up and telling you, man, that was yours, that was yours. It was supposed to be you. And then somebody else came in. Whoa, where did that come from? That was my spot. That's mine. Now you're unhappy. You were in a job, you were there for years, you were happy. Now you're unhappy. All because you lifted yourself up. But this happens. I mean, this is a real example. I've seen it within jobs I've had. So let's go to Ezekiel 28, verses 12 and 15. Verse 12, you were the seal of perfection, full of wisdom and perfect in beauty. Verse 15, you were perfect in your ways from the day you were created till iniquity was found in you. I want to point out this brother was created as Lucifer. God did not create Satan. God created Lucifer, which stands for light bearer. He was perfect. Satan became our adversary, which is what it stands for. But God created Lucifer, who was perfect. Now you got to imagine, go back to that scenario. This brother's walking around. He's perfect. He's beautiful. He's got the best voice. He's covered in all these beautiful stones. He's walking around heaven like, I'm the man. And every angel is looking to him like, you're the man. Because he's right next to God the Father. He's right there. And he's so beautiful in his voice. And they're putting it in his heart. And Lucifer held on to that. Just like those people at that job. He held on to that. And said, yeah, I'm the man. That's me. I'm beautiful. I got the best voice. But what happens? Something else happens. Philippians 2, verse 7 and 8. Verse 7. But made himself of no reputation, taking the form of a bondservant, and coming in the likeness of men, verse 8, and being found in appearance as a man, he humbled himself and became obedient to the point of death, even to the cross. So we got the beautiful Lucifer, and now you got this brother. Humble. I know it's just giving you a humble, very humble. Doesn't need all that. And all of a sudden, this brother comes in the picture, and God the Father says, this is who you're going to worship. This is who you're going to look to. And all the angels are going, wait a minute. I thought it was Lucifer. And Lucifer's over there going, whoa, there's a mistake. Hold on. Yeah, don't worry about it. We'll get this fixed. I'll go talk to the Father. We'll get it all straight. This guy's a nobody. Don't worry about it. And you see it rises in his heart because he's been lifted up for so long. And now, who's this coming to take my promotion? Who's this coming to take my job? And Lucifer just held on to it and held on to it. And it's just like any job if you're at. If you hold on to it and hold on to it, it becomes so toxic you get fired or you quit. Inevitable. And this is what Lucifer did. And instead of that, he walked around, and just like that job, he's trying to convince everybody how horrible that it is. God's horrible. His character's this. He's trying to convince everybody. He wants to bring everybody down because he's angry. Just like at a job. You missed that promotion, you're going to walk around and gossip, and you're going to bring everybody out. How horrible is this job? Let's all leave. We can go work over here and make more money. Come on. That's what Lucifer's doing. And eventually it comes to the point, just like that job, they have to fire you because you're causing so much turmoil. And sometimes you may take a third of the people with you, just like in heaven. So this is what happened in Isaiah 14, verses 13 and 14. Verse 13, for thou hast said in thine heart, I will ascend into heaven. I will exalt throne above the stars of God. I will sit also upon the mount of the congregation in the sides of the north. Verse 14, I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will be like the Most High. That's what happened in Lucifer's heart. I. You see in those two verses, 5 times he says, I. It's not about us. It's not about anybody else. It's about himself. It's about self. So sometime back I saw this documentary, and you're going to hear a little bit more about where I came from with what I used to hold as idols, so to speak. But this is a soccer team in England, and St. James is the name of the stadium, and Newcastle is the city that they play in. And I want you to understand this is an interview. They're interviewing a fan. I want you to see how Satan works. Because you have professed Christians who go to these things and claim to be Christians, but they don't realize they are being led by Satan. They don't realize it. And so they'll say things and they just think, oh, it's all in good fun, it's no big deal. Well, not always. St. James Park is our church. It is Newcastle in its entirety. He's comparing a soccer stadium to church, because in his heart it is. Has been the root of my identity. I always thought Jesus was the root and we are the branches. That's what the Bible tells me. You see how Satan uses people and they don't even know it, what they're saying. They have no clue what they're saying. And it's been present since I'm born to the day I die. And I'm a Hindu, and if I can make any request, I'll tell you, just replace Hindu with Christian, and I promise you it's the same. And I'm a Christian, and if I make any request, it's that I hope, dear Lord, you'll reincarnate me as a Newcastle United fan again. What's he chasing? All he cares about. A game, a sport, a game. That's what's in his heart. We're going to get into mine. So, I grew up in a culture where LSU football was everything. I grew up in a household where LSU football is what you woke up and did. That's all we talked about. That's all we did. Ever since I can remember, I was a kid. I had family members all go to LSU. I went to LSU. I graduated from LSU. But LSU football was what revolved around us. It was our world. So growing up with this, I was into this, you know. It was just what you did. So as I got older, into my years of alcoholism, after I'd gotten married, what I would do is on Saturday morning, I would try to wake up early and go buy breakfast to bring it to my wife, because in my mind, I said, that's a get-out-of-jail-free card for later, because I'm going to get roaring drunk watching football all day. And she's not going to like it, so I'm going to go get her breakfast. And what I want you to understand is, in the mind of an alcoholic or an addict, it is selfish. I was just thinking about myself. Even though I'm going to buy her breakfast, I was only thinking of myself, saying, I'm doing this with an ulterior motive to get out of jail free later. Oh, remember that breakfast I bought you whenever she's angry at me because I'm passed out on the floor and she's waking me up? Remember that breakfast I bought you? I mean, that was in my mind the logical reason why I did that. And so everything I did was selfish. It revolved around Win. It was Win's world. Ligiani just was in it because it was just a selfish seeking And so my Saturdays would be this. I would wake up Saturday, and 6 a.m., soccer would be on. I was a big soccer fan. I'd watch soccer from 6 a.m. till 12. 12 on Saturday, football would start. I love college football. Did this every Sabbath. And I'd be drinking the whole time. I already got a breakfast. Now I could just stay home and get drunk. And I'd keep going until I'd pass out. You know, eventually your body's like, enough. Pass out. But the LSU game was always on late. I could wake up just in time and start drinking again and watch LSU. This was my Saturday. You're not taking that from me. That's my time. I work hard. I'm going to have fun on my Saturday. Yeah. And so this is what I would do. But what would happen is the game would turn me into a different person. I'd be screaming curse words at the TV, I'd be screaming at other people. I would become anxious. I would have to go outside sometimes because, they're going to lose. And I'd go walk around the house because I'm just so anxious over a game. But it affected me. It affected me. It was in my very being. And this is something that made me very angry. And you're going to lash out at people around you. And so I would. Who's the closest person to me? My poor wife. She's coming home from church. And here I've been liquored up all day, screaming at a TV, ready to put holes in the wall over a game. But it was serious to me. And don't you say one word, it's just a game. It's going to set me off. Whew. I'm just going, it's not good. And so the entire week, my world revolved around this game every week for those 4 months of the year. It did. It was from Sunday all the way to Friday. That's all I thought about was what time's the game? When's the game on? When is this going to happen? But it never fulfilled me. I was always anxious. I was always angry. I was always unhappy. It's like even when they won the national championships, which they did while I was there, I was still like, what about next year? Yay, we won. Okay, what about next year? And you start looking at recruiting and all this. It's just things we were into. And so this became my idol. Truthfully. This was an idol in my life that was holding me down. And I'm going to share this story my freshman year. And look, there's a lot of stories I can't share. If y'all have heard enough about LSU, I'm sure you know. But this one's at least watered down enough. I was a freshman in college. It was the first 2003, and they were just getting good. We went out, and they had something called College Game Day. Now, this is like a big deal in the college sports world, and they set up over there by the basketball stadium up on a ramp. They're called the PMAC. And we went out there at 2 a.m. the Friday before to get a good spot because we wanted to get on TV. It was a bunch of us. It was about 5 or 6 of my friends. And the crowd started pouring in as we got there, and there was nowhere to go. You're on a ramp. This is going up a ramp. There's nowhere to go, and there's people. You're crowded in. And there was a guy next to us with an ice chest. Now, we're right up on the edge, so you can see over the ramp down to where people can walk. And we're on this edge, and this guy's got an ice chest, and he's been hammering back beers the whole time. Well, he's got nowhere to go. So he would use the empty beer cans to help himself. And so time goes by. They had the College Game Day. We're on TV. We're all yelling. And during this time, fans are starting to walk around. You're seeing it. We're playing a team called Georgia, who at this time was like 2 top 10 teams at the time. It was a big game. And some Georgia fans were walking under the ramp, and I'll never forget the guy taking those beer cans and dumping it on them. I said, whoa, what is this? And my friends who had been going to college for a few years, they were a couple years older than me, oh yeah, that's normal. Yeah, that's not that bad. What? Now, I'm coming fresh from Alexandria. I've never seen anything like this, you know. I'm like, what's going on here? And, you know, believe it or not, by the time I was a senior, I was participating. I just fell right in. It's what you do. You go and you chant things, you do it, you know, just, you can go into it with the right reasons, but you can come out of it with the wrong. And just, it was something, many other ones, but I don't want to get into them. I'll share a quote. This is from the Inspired Pen. Some of the most popular amusements, such as football and boxing, have become schools of brutality. They are developing the same characteristics as did the games of ancient Rome. The love of domination, the pride of mere brute force, the reckless disregard of life are exerting upon the youth a power to demoralize that is appalling. It's the youth. They got me when I was 18. And I got sucked right into it, even younger. And that's where it starts. And I had to realize just what it was doing to me. And so you go to 1 John 2:16 and we say, look, for all that is in the world, the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life. Ooh. This was a story I'll never forget. There were some guys who had the paint on them, and they had a cross painted on them. And it became a big deal because the website it was the newspaper photoshopped the cross out of the photo that was on them. And they were upset. And many LSU fans were very upset about this, that they're taking the cross out of the photo. But I hate to tell you, I've been in those student sections for years. They're chanting the most vile, disgusting things. I participated. They are. It is absolutely disgusting what they chant at other people as a whole. And it'll be 20,000 people chanting it. You can hear it. And they're more concerned with having a cross show up on a newspaper article. Just pointing out what it says. Look, lust of the eyes. You got all these pretty things. When you see a big hit, we would be like, ooh and ah, ooh, look at that hit. And it was pleasing to see these things. Again, I was so into this, I couldn't see it. And then we have pride. What is it about? Who's the best? That's all that matters. I'm better than you because my team's better than you. It's pride. I need to lift myself up, my team up, but I need to put you down in the process. I'm going to be honest with y'all. There will not be football in heaven. So, be a professed Christian and say, look, I was one of them. I loved it. I'm just telling you, when we get to heaven, God's not going to have a football out there while we're playing football and somebody wins and loses. No. So if we're not preparing ourselves now, then, we're not going to be ready. But I had to see it. And with pride, fights, who's better, you see it. You can see it whenever you see these things. And look, this was a thing that was holding me back because God was trying to say, when you're spending too much time here and you need to be spending more time with me. And when I said I'm going to make the compromise when I became a Adventist and I'm going to tape all the games, wait till the sunset and watch them all. I said, I can get the best of both. God said, no, you're missing the point. When? I want that time with you. I don't want you to be thinking about this all day. And what would I do? I would think about it all day. Oh, man, that big game. Michigan's playing Ohio State. You better believe I'm thinking about that all day. I got it taped. And when I get home, first thing I'm going to do is, as soon as that sunset goes down, that timer on that clock goes click, click, click. Boom, my TV's on and I'm watching football. I'm telling you, I did it. But I had to realize things had to change. God was piercing my heart with these things and saying, when? I just want to spend more time with you. It's just like those little sticky notes we saw in the video. I just want to spend more time with you. That's all. We tend to, by uplifting celebrities, sports figures, we are actually exalting self. We're looking up to them as something we fantasize or want to be. I did it. It's the truth to it. I aspired to be that, and I never could ever be that, so I lived through them. Let's go back to the Bible where we can see where there's an example of this happen, where Paul and Barnabas are going to a place where it was very pagan. And so they're having this, they've gone out and they've preached and they've done these things, and this is their reaction to them preaching. This is in Acts 14, verses 11 and 12, verse 11. Now when the people saw what Paul had done, they raised their voices, saying, the gods have come down to us in the likeness of men. Verse 12, and Barnabas they called Zeus, and Paul Hermes, because he was the chief speaker. Verse 14, but when the apostles, Barnabas and Paul, heard this, they tore their clothes and ran in among the multitude, crying out. Now, in this day when they tore, they also called rent. When they would rent their clothes was just a matter of kind of a mourning, but it's saying, whoa, 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 we're going too far with this. Verse 15, saying, men, why are you doing these things? We also are men with the same nature as you, and preach to you that you should turn from these useless things to the living God, who made the heaven, the earth, the sea, and all things in them. They just went and pointed back to God. It's not about me, it's about God. All this is in my past of what I've done. These are things about me, but this is how God can change you. He can take an alcoholic and have him stand up here and talk to you. That's what God can do. I couldn't do that on my own. I tried. I went to rehabs. I tried. None of it was working. But God can come in and do that. If you let God in, he can do it. I had actually met a pastor up at 3ABN, and he was very humble. Actually told us he didn't take autographs, and he didn't like photos because of this exact scenario. He didn't want people uplifting him because he's on TV. He says it needs to be about Christ. And at first it seemed kind of like, man, that's kind of rude. He's like, I'm not trying to be rude. It's just I want to continue to humble myself. So that's an interesting approach. And so he had to keep humbling himself. But here's the lie. We tell ourselves that self-exaltation keeps us happy, but it doesn't. So we run into these things where we have habits and changes. Now, take all those habits I had with LSU football. So imagine I had 30 years of these bad habits. It'd be like, let's say you're right-handed for all your life, and something happens to your right hand, and now you got to be left-handed. It's difficult. It takes time, and that's why Paul says, I die daily, because you have to do it every day. Even as an alcoholic, we teach other alcoholics every single day, you take it one day at a time. Don't think of the big picture, just one day. You know what, today I'm not going to get drunk. Okay. Today I'm not going to do this. One day at a time. And that's how you create other habits. So imagine, as a lifelong Adventist, if you went to prison. Would that be a shock? It would. So when I went to rehab, I always said, I'm better than them, I'm different than them. Every addict and alcoholic says this. And while I was there, speaking to them, getting to know them, I realized I was just like them. I got along great. I was just like them. So then let's reverse that scenario. Take somebody in the world and stick them in the Adventist church. That's a lot of habits and changes. All of a sudden, I'm having to eat different, talk different, dress different, act different. I can't eat these foods. I got to stop watching this TV, stop listening to this music. I had to change habits. And now, had I just said, I need to stop doing this, I wouldn't have done it. But when I fell in love with Jesus, I said, absolutely. It was easy. No problem. Yes, Lord, you want me to get rid of that? Okay. But we still had that little football one that was hanging on. He was hanging on. He was saying, but what about this? You got to get rid of this to make more room for me. And now, I hate the things I used to love, and I love the things I used to hate. And that's what God can do when you love him and let him in your heart. He will change your thinking. People often say, I can't get rid of this sin. I hear it so often, I can't get rid of this sin. But I'm telling you, you got to get rid of things you don't want to get rid of. If you're not getting rid of these things, you're going to fall right back into it. I had one guy even tell me, look, he said, I picked up my TV and I put it right in the trash can. It was the only way I could stop watching it. If that's what it takes. Every person has different, how they handle it. I'll read this quote again. This is from Desire of Ages. Man's advantage for obtaining a knowledge of the truth, however great these may be, will prove of no benefit to him unless the heart is open to receive the truth. And there is a conscientious surrender of every habit and practice that is opposed to its principles. Again, a surrender of every habit and practice that is opposed to truth, to its principles. You have to surrender it. That's what God's asking us. Surrender it. Give it to Him. Come to me. And then people start looking at you and they call you a fanatic. Your own family. You know? Look, the truth is Lucifer never wanted to be like God. Lucifer did not want to change. He wanted to rule his way. He wanted it Lucifer's way. He didn't want to get up there and be like God and be love. No. He wanted it his way. His rule. So we know God is love. And we have known and believed the love that God has for us. God is love. And he who abides in love abides in God and God in him. So what is love? 1 Corinthians 13, 4 through 8, verse 4. Love suffers long and is kind. Love does not envy. Love does not parade itself. It is not puffed up, does not behave rudely, does not seek its own, is not provoked, thinks no evil, bears all things, endures all things. Love never fails. So, God is love. So what about this? God suffers long and is kind. God does not envy. God does not parade himself. God is not puffed up. God does not behave rudely. God does not seek his own. God is not provoked. God thinks no evil. God bears all things. God endures all things. And God never fails. You know, if you take the Conflict of Ages series and you take it all the way, it's kind of like a Bible commentary, if you go through all 5, and you take the first one of Patriarchs and Prophets, at the very beginning, the first 3 words that you'll see is God is love. And then you go and read the whole thing, and you go to the Great Controversy, and the very last 3 words in the Great Controversy is God is love. She starts with God is love and ends with God is love. You know, when you have trouble reading some verses and you wonder about why did God do this to these people or these people, always take this verse, 2 Peter 3:9, where it says, the Lord is not slack concerning his promise, as some count slackness, but is long-suffering toward us, not willing that any should perish, but that all should come to repentance. He's going to do everything he can. He's going to put all those stickies up and get your attention and tell you everything he can to convince you to come to him. But freedom is the only way he can let us love. And with the freedom, it has risk. And the risk is people can reject God. But you put this verse in front of anything. Now we'll close out with these. So if we go back to John and the conversation that he's having with Jesus, notice that Jesus says, feed my lambs. What's he talking about? You can look at Revelation 13:8. And all that dwell upon the earth shall worship him, whose names are not written in the book of life of the Lamb, slain from the foundation of the world. You could even say these lambs represent people in the Adventist church, people who know and have knowledge of the Bible. This is the remnant people. And then in verse 16, he says again, a different phrase, but he says, feed my sheep. Now in this one, John 10:16, he says, and other sheep I have, which are not of this fold, them also I must bring, and they shall hear my voice, and there shall be one fold and one shepherd. He's saying, I have sheep in other churches. Not just here. They're in other churches. They're there. And he says a third time in verse 17, feed my sheep. Who's he referring to when he's telling this to Peter? Isaiah 53:6. And all we like sheep have gone astray. We have turned everyone to his own way. These are the sheep that are in the world. They're out there. And that's what Jesus is telling Peter. He's saying, I want you to help the people in the church. I want you to help the people in the other churches. And I want you to help the people in the world. Find my sheep and bring them in. We're not bringing them into just the Adventist church. We're bringing them in to love God. Go get my sheep. There's sheep out there that love me. They're there, they're here, they're there. Go out there. They're on the street, homeless every night, and they love me. Go get them. That's what Jesus is telling us to do. Go get them. They're out there. You got to go find them. And that's the love we should have in our heart. Because when I go around, it breaks my heart now to see people on the side of the road and watching them suffer. It just breaks my heart. Whereas the person I was before was so selfish, I only couldn't think about myself. And now I'm looking at people and it just breaks me. It breaks me. Because Jesus has completely changed this drunkard's heart. Completely. And now we should be all thinking like this. You should love your brother and sister in the church. You should love your brother and sister in another church. And we should love our brother and sisters in the world. Remember, Jesus still loved them as he was dying on the cross, as they were piercing them, as they were beating them. That's the kind of love God wants us to have. And so you get asked, is the life you live self-denying or is it self-gratifying? I don't know about y'all, but Jesus wants us to be like him, to show love to others. If Christians could take this love when they let Jesus in and show other Christians this love. I just had a conversation with a family member who can't stand how Christians act. And we were having this conversation, and she doesn't want anything to do with religion because of what she saw. And I said, I was there. I hated Christians because they were a bunch of hypocrites. But I'm telling you, when they let Jesus in, there's a love you can't understand. There's a love that God has that is there. And once you know it, you want more of it. There's nothing else in this world you want. And it changes you. It changes you in every way. And so we're going to sing our song.